Welcome to day 13 of UPSC previous year question paper revision. And in this video, I will cover GS4 of 2025. But one thing I want to tell you is that what I will do the theory questions separately and case study separately. So in this video, I will go through the theory questions of all the theory questions of this paper, but I will not cover the case studies. I will make a separate section for case study only so that your brain should not confuse between the theory and the case studies, right? So you will have everything at one place. So let's get started and let's cover all the 13 questions from this paper. Let's revise together. Question 1. In the present digital age, social media has revolutionized our way of communication and interaction. However, it has raised several ethical issues and challenges. Describe the key ethical dilemmas in this regard. Social media ethics involves applying foundational moral principles to digital communication. Its revolution has introduced complex dilemmas where corporate profits, technological architecture, and human rights frequently collide. Key ethical dilemmas: freedom of expression versus curbing hate speech, balancing individual speech rights against the urgent administrative duty to prevent misinformation and communal violence, data privacy versus algorithmic monetization, the friction between a user's right to data privacy, Article 21, and tech corporation using behavioral profiling to maximize engagement, anonymity versus accountability. Anonymity protects digital whistleblowers but also shields bad actors from legal consequences regarding cyberbullying and trolling. Truth versus virality, post-truth. Algorithms prioritize sensationalism over factual reality, distorting public discourse for corporate gain. Resolving these challenges requires combining strict legal frameworks like the DPDP Act with the algorithmic transparency, ensuring technology serves the public interest. Constitutional morality is not a natural sentiment but a product of civil education and adherence of the rule of law. Examine the significance of constitutional morality for public servant, highlighting the role in promoting good governance and ensuring accountability in public administration. As articulated by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, constitutional morality means adhering to the core value of the Constitution, such as liberty, equality, and justice, over passing societal opinions or arbitrary exercises of administrative power. Significance of public servants: promoting good governance. It moves officials from passive rule compliance to active value-driven governance. It ensures that public welfare policies remain inclusive, transparent, and non-discriminatory, targeting the most vulnerable groups. Antyodaya, ensuring accountability. It acts as an internal moral compass under Article 51A. This principle guides civil servants to resist political pressure, prevent conflict of interest, and keep administrative decisions aligned with the rule of law. Example: Lal Bahadur Shastri resigning as railway minister following a train accident showcases deep constitutional responsibility. As per ARC guidelines, embedding constitutional morality through regular civil education transforms the bureaucracy into a responsive custodian of democratic integrity. Question 2. Karl von Clausewitz once said, "War is a diplomacy by other means." Critically analyze the above statement in the present context of contemporary geopolitical conflict. Clausewitz's dictum states that war is not a random act of violence but a rational political tool used by states to achieve strategic foreign policy goals when diplomatic negotiations fail. Critical analysis in contemporary context. The traditional view: contemporary conflicts such as the Russian-Ukraine war or Middle Eastern instabilities show states using military power to force political concessions and reshape borders when diplomacy stalls. The ethical breakdown: modern warfare increasingly bypasses international legal frameworks like the UN Charter. The use of gray zone tactics, cyber warfare, and economic blockades impacts civilian population, turning war into a failure of diplomacy rather than its extension. Example: India's diplomatic stance that this era is not of war emphasizes that dialogue must replace violence. While war remains a geopolitical reality, true international stability requires moving away from Clausewitzian aggression toward collective rule-based global diplomacy. Keeping the national security in mind, examine the ethical dilemmas related to controversies over environmental clearance of development projects in ecological sensitive border areas in the country. This issue creates a classic ethical dilemma, pitting the state's duty to protect territorial integrity through infrastructure against its obligation to conserve fragile ecosystems for sustainable development. Key ethical dilemmas: immediate security versus long term sustainability. Building strategic border roads is vital for defense mobilization, but clearing forest can trigger landslides and flash floods as seen in recent Himalayan infrastructure crisis. Statutory compliance versus tactical urgency. Bypassing detailed environmental impact assessments for defense needs speeds up project delivery but risk causing permanent unmitigated damage to local biodiversity. State directives versus indigenous well-being. Aligning border development with national defense priorities can displace local communities and disrupt traditional livelihoods. Addressing these requires a balanced approach using green engineering methods and conducting independent ecological reviews to ensure infrastructure strengthens security without destroying the environment. Those who in trouble untroubled are will trouble itself. Thiruvalluvar. What does this quotation convey to you in the present context? The quote from the Thirukkural highlights the value of emotional intelligence, fortitude, and resilience. It states that individuals who maintain inner calm and mental clarity during crisis and can disarm and overcome the difficulties they face. Contemporary application: crisis administration. Public servants frequently face unexpected disasters, civil unrest, or public health emergencies. Maintaining composure allow for rational objective decision making under the intense pressure. Example: IAS officer Armstrong Payne leading the community construction of the People's Road in Manipur despite facing severe financial and logistical hurdles. Corporate and public resilience. In a rapidly changing world, leaders who manage anxiety can guide organizations through economic disruption without compromising core ethical values. Thiruvalluvar's insight reminds us that true leadership is defined by inner calm, showing that stoic determination can turn obstacles into paths for growth. Question 3b. The greatest discovery of my generation is that a human being can alter his life by altering his attitudes. William James. What does this quotation convey to you in the present context? William James emphasizes the power of behavioral psychology and cognitive choices. It indicates that structural transformation in an individual's external life are driven primarily by internal shifts in their attitude, perception, and mental outlook. Contemporary application. Administrative attitudinal shift. Bureaucracies often struggle with rigid, rule-bound system. Cultivating a proactive citizen-centric attitude turns indifferent public desk into platform for compassionate, efficient service delivery. Example: the transformation of public sanitation under the Swachh Bharat mission succeeded by focusing on shifting community attitudes towards hygiene, overcoming vulnerabilities on an individual level, shifting from a victim mindset to an empowered approach helps people navigate modern mental health stresses and economic changes. This quote serves as a call to action, reminding us that institutional and personal progress begins with a conscious decision to change our internal attitudes. The strength of a society is not in its law, but in the morality of its people. Swami Vivekananda. Well, look, this quote is so true, and we as a citizen should follow this, because otherwise if you are dreaming about like 3 trillion, 1 trillion, 10 trillion economy, you will get it monetarily, but not like in a proper way. Citizens are stupid. Indian citizens I am talking about, and there is no doubt about it. Swami Vivekananda explains that while formal laws provide a framework for order, a society's true strength lies in the internalized morality, character, and ethical values of its citizens. Without a moral foundation, legal rules are easily bypassed. Contemporary application. Limits of legal framework. India possesses strict laws against corruption, PCA, and gender violence, POXO, yet these issues persist. This shows that legislation alone cannot substitute for a lack of societal empathy and integrity. Organic justice. Lasting social harmony and public integrity occur when citizens respect the right of others out of a sense of moral duty rather than fear of legal punishment. Laws restrict bad behavior, but morality inspires good actions. True nation building requires balancing legal enforcement with a focus on value based education. For any kind of social re engineering, by successfully implementing welfare schemes, a civil servant must use reasons and critical thinking in an ethical framework. Justify this statement with suitable examples. Social re engineering involves transforming deep seated societal habits to drive inclusive development. Achieving this requires combining logical critical thinking with strong moral principles to ensure welfare schemes remain effective and just. Justification with examples. Reasons prevent rule Reason prevents rule-bound injustices. Critical thinking allows officials to set past administrative technicalities to protect human dignity. Example, an administrator using emergency discretion to distribute food rations to a poor family despite biometric verification failures. Avoid a cold rigid adherence to rules. Data analytics for social good. Reason helps identify systemic leaks and targeting errors, while an ethical focus ensures data collection protects personal privacy rights under Article 21. Overcoming structural resistance. Driving social adjustment like behavioral shift under the Swachh Bharat mission requires using rational community persuasion rather than coercive force. Balancing administrative rationality with deep compassion transform public scheme from basic asset transfer into powerful tools for sustainable social empowerment. What are the major teachings of Mahavir? Explain their relevance in the contemporary world. Lord Mahavir, the 24th Tirthankara of Jainism, formulated a comprehensive spiritual and behavioral framework centered on absolute non-violence, structural pluralism, and self-restraint to achieve ethical purity. Major teachings: Ahimsa, absolute avoidance of causing harm to any living being through thoughts, words, or deeds. Anekant, Anekantavada, and Satyadvada, the philosophy of structural pluralism and the relativity of truth, recognizing that reality is multifaceted and human perspective are inherently partial. Apargraha, non-possessiveness, limiting personal desires and material accumulation to counter greed. Relevance in the contemporary world. Core teaching, evolving global application. Ahimsa serve as a powerful alternative to global conflict, radicalization, and systemic animal cruelty. Anekantavada fosters multi-faith tolerance and open dialogue, countering dogmatic echo chambers. Apargraha directly support SDG 12, responsible consumption, to combat climate change and resource greed. Mahavir's timeless tenets provide a clear ethical framework to guide modern society towards peace, ecological balance, and mutual respect. Question 5. One who is devoted to one's duty attains highest perfection in life. Analyze this statement with reference to sense of responsibility and personal fulfillment as a civil servant. Rooted in the concept of Nishkama Karma from Bhagavad Gita, this statement explains the true professional excellence and deep personal satisfaction are achieved by performing one's duties with complete dedication without worrying about personal rewards. Analysis in civil services, sense of responsibility. For a public servant, this principle elevates a job into a higher calling, kartavya. It drives a deep commitment to institutional integrity, ensuring that public resources are managed transparently and decisions remain fair as outlined by Nolan principles. Personal fulfillment. True job satisfaction for an administrator comes from making a real difference in people's life, such as successfully electrifying a remote village or resolving a public grievance. This intrinsic reward outlasts the temporary prestige of official power. Example, the unyielding dedication of COVID warrior administrators during public health crisis highlights how fulfilling a sense of duty can be. Aligning professional responsibility with a commitment to public commitment to public service turns daily administration into a meaningful pursuit of national welfare and personal excellence. Oh. To achieve a holistic development goal, a civil servant acts as an enabler and active facilitator of growth rather than a regulator. What specific measures will you suggest to achieve this goal? Transitioning from a controlling regulator to a proactive enabler requires a cultural shift in public administration, moving away from a command and control approach toward collaborative citizen centric governance. Specific suggested measures: implementing subsidiarity, devolve decision making authority down to local panchayati raj institutions, enabling communities to direct their own development priorities. Cooperative public-private frameworks simplify complex regularity processes and introduce transparent single window clearances to encourage private innovation and social entrepreneurship. Citizen centricity and open governance. Set up citizen character frameworks, institutionalize regular social audits, and utilize platforms like MyGov to co-create public policies with direct community feedback. Attitudinal shift framework, redesign civil service training modules under mission Karma Yogi to replace a rigid rule bound mindset with an empathetic problem solving approach. Shifting the administrative focus from imposing restrictions to expanding opportunities enables civil servant to unlock sustainable inclusive growth across society. It is said that for an ethical work culture, there must be code of ethics in place in every organization to ensure value-based and compliance-based work culture. What suitable measures would you adopt in your workplace? An ethical work culture balances a compliance-based framework adhering to formal legal rules with a value-based approach, internalizing core moral principles like honesty and fairness to guide organizational behavior. Suitable measures for adoption. Institutionalize the dual code pair. Institutionalize the dual code. Pair a strict code of conduct, defining legal boundaries with an inspirational code of ethics to guide daily institutional decision making. Lead by personal example. Practice transparent value based leadership to set a high standard of integrity across the organization. Anonymized whistleblower protection. Set up secure internal channels that protect employees who report wrongdoing from institutional retaliation. Regular participatory ethics audits. Conduct interactive training sessions that use real world administrative dilemmas to help staff internalize ethical values. Combining clear rules with shared moral values transforms compliance from a mandatory burden into an organic everyday organizational habit. India is an emerging economic power of the world as it has recently secured the status of fourth largest economy of the world as per IMF projection. However, it has been observed that in some sectors, allocated funds remain either underutilized or misutilized. What specific measures would you recommend for ensuring accountability in this regard to stop leakages and gaining the status of third largest economy of the world in near future? India's rise towards India's rise toward becoming the world's largest economy relies heavily on optimizing public spending efficiency. We must transition away from simple resource allocation to a strict focus on measurable leakage-free implementation. Specific recommended measures. Mandatory outcome-based budgeting. Shift administrative focus from tracking simple expenditure to measuring actual developmental outcome on the ground. Real-time financial tracking. Use the public financial system management and end-to-end direct benefit transfer networks to prevent intermediate fund division, fund divergence, and block systemic leaks. Institutional social audits empower local communities to conduct mandatory social audits of infrastructure projects using mobile governance tools to report irregularities instantly. Strict oversight frameworks strengthen the oversight roles of the CAG and departmental parliamentary committees to penalize delayed or utilized budget lines. Strengthening financial transparency and administrative accountability ensures public fund drives sustainable infrastructure growth and secure long-term economic expansion. Okay, so we are done with the theory questions, and as I said, I will continue the case studies in a separate video, so where you will have only the case studies.